Hello everyone, I'm Clemens Scheiber, Head of Water at the Swarovski Foundation, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to the final session of our three-part Water Masterclass series. Across this series, our partnership with IHE Delft, the Institute for Water Education, has focused on building strong foundation in water knowledge, linking science, systems, and real-world application. The same spirit guides our work at the Swarovski Foundation, where we invest in people and support future water leaders to drive sustainable change across sectors. Today, we turn our focus to a critical and highly important topic, water supply and sanitation in an industrial context. Delivered by Dr. Carlos Lopez Vasquez, Associate Professor of Sanitary Engineering, this session explores how water supply and sanitation systems underpin industrial operations, environmental protection, and sustainable development. Thank you all for joining for this final session. Professor Lopez Vasquez, over to you.
Thank you very much, Clemens. Thanks a lot to the Swarovski Foundation for this opportunity to present a little bit of what we do at the Institute and the importance of water supply and sanitation under the current industrial conditions. My name is Carlos Lopez, Associate Professor of Sanitary Engineering at IHE Delft. So maybe just as a short introduction, while I am only one more of around 100 academic staff members at our institute that we are located in Delft between Amsterdam and Rotterdam, and we consider we are the largest international institute for graduate education in the world, where practically all the topics related to water are covered, from technologies up to hydroinformatics, governance, and some other aspects. Delft, well, is not only famous because of different aspects related to water, but also has, for example, being the town where several Dutch famous painters, like, for example, Johannes Vermeer or another lawyer, Hugo de Groot, were born, that contributed to the art, to the law, and to different aspects in culture and sciences. IHE Delft, in particular, is an institute where we not only do education, postgraduate education, but we also have three more pillars. One of them that is very important is that we perform applied research. We perform the research where it is mostly needed, engaging, working with different stakeholders in the regions, in local communities, so they also help us in finding the adequate solutions. At the same time, we perform capacity building and advisory services to the private and the public sector, so they can also adopt and help in the implementation of these different actions. Well, IHE, as mentioned before, we are located in Delft, but has also played an important role in the water sector. Some of our contributions, for example, are related to hydroinformatics. Hydroinformatics was actually developed in the institute by Professor Michael Abbott in the 1990s of the past century, where Professor Abbott, together with some of his MSc and PhD students, started to work on the use of more advanced computational techniques to handle water. Also around the same years, Professor Arjen Hoekstra was the creator of the water footprint concept, trying to quantify how much water is involved in the production of different goods, in the production of different products. And by calculating the amount of water, he also came up with some other terms related to the virtual water that's related to the importation of water from sectors where certain products cannot be produced and therefore are imported, but it also has that intrinsic or embedded water behind. And last but not least, we also have among our staff members Professor Yujita Gupta, who in 2007 was part of the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change that was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in that year, together with Al Gore, former Vice President of the United States. So these are some of IHE's contributions. Now, related to the topic that we are covering today, I would like to start with giving certain background about the industrial activities. In general, industrial activities, we are all fully aware that are essential for development, that are key for the provision of goods, the provision of products that help us in having better living conditions nowadays, and also reach different levels of productivity, different levels of activities, actions that we wouldn't be able to do it without these goods. As such, it also is important for the creation of jobs, because several people are involved in one way or another, directly or indirectly, in the production process or in the supply chain, and therefore are an important trigger for economic growth and help us in improving the living standards. However, some of the activities tend to be very water demanding, and some of them, like for example mining, that is essential for the energy transition, are located in areas where water tends to be very scarce. And since there are many other stakeholders or people living close to these activities, that can also impact the water availability of the region, and in some cases also the water quality. Just as an example, when we think about the water that the production of certain products involves, for example, to produce one cotton t-shirt, in some cases up to 2.7 cubic meters of water are needed, or for the production of some jeans, more than or almost 11 cubic meters or 11,000 liters of water are required. Whereas for the production of 1 liter of milk, almost 1,000 liters are needed. So you can imagine, well, this is not only the water that is needed for the production, but it also implies the amount of water that is necessary for the full production chain, from the very early first moment where the first elements of these products are produced until reaching the final product. And at the same time, or along the same lines, we can, for example, see that to produce 1 kilo of copper, that is critical nowadays for batteries, that is critical for the, in this case, the conduction of energy, almost 380 liters are required. The computer that I am using now, the computer that we have, they require almost 1.5 cubic meters of water, etc., etc. So the amount of water that are necessary and that make us our life easier, the amount of water is considerable, only to have all these products with us and be able to use them. So this implies that there are some other aspects that go beyond the production of these products that we need to take care of. So it's not only the amount of water, but also, for example, we can have different types of issues if we don't control the emissions that go from environmental and public health risks to, even in some cases, certain frictions that may occur because of the lack of water, of enough amount, of enough quality. And in some cases, for the industries, nowadays they may also create certain additional pressure in terms of environmental sustainability for their actions. Now, if we focus on the wash sector, that is the water and sanitation conditions that we have worldwide, in this other sector, we can see that more than 2.1 billion people are affected by, in this case, the global warming. 10% of the global gross development product comes from regions where the water is very scarce, and this could increase by the year 2050 to almost 46%. So the amount of water that is available tends to be very limited, and in time will become more critical for the different communities. And it's not only for the communities, also 1 in 5 companies are starting to experience different levels of water shortage that starts to also limit their activities. In terms of the global water distribution and where people live, almost 4 billion people live in areas where water is very scarce, and in some cases they don't have water available during long periods during the year. And it's not only the amount of water, also water is supplied to the different households. People use the water on the different activities, and after they consume the water, they release it, they discharge it as wastewater. And this is also another, let's say, another challenge that we have, because almost 80% of the water that is used in the households is around the world is not adequately collected, transported, and treated. So a lot of this wastewater is released into the environment with any treatment at all, what also leads to different types of environmental issues. And because of the water quality and because of the amount of water that is consumed or required by different types of activities, there is a decline of 85% of freshwater availability in different regions. So in terms of water for the people in general, we can see that in terms of sanitation, but also in terms of water availability, there are very high risks and challenges that we are facing up currently, and that may become even much more dramatic in about 21, 25 years. Here we can see that that distribution is not even. The distribution of water is very uneven due to different factors related to climate change, but also to local meteorological, hydrological conditions. In this drawing, we can see the number of months in which, let's say, the people experience more than a certain number of months without 100% water availability. And we can see that there are areas like, for example, here in Brazil, or here in the center of Africa, Canada, in northern countries, that water is relatively, let's say, secured. But there are many other areas, regions, like North America, South America, Northern Africa, even Australia or South of Africa, where water is very scarce. In some cases, they don't have water for more than 6 to 8 months continuously during the year. If we focus on sanitation, the numbers are also considerably high. In terms of the number of people up to last year that have access to or don't have access to safely managed drinking water, we have more than 2 billion people that don't have the required water supplied to their households with the required quality. At the same time, 3.4 billion people don't have adequate sanitation facilities. That means that either they don't have adequate solutions for their daily activities, but also that the wastewater that is generated may not be transported and treated properly. And at home, almost 2 billion people lack basic hygiene services. This improved sanitation along the same lines is not evenly distributed, and we see that in particular in certain African countries is where we face the most, let's say, dramatic challenges. Also in India and to some extent also in Latin America. So this implies that there are a lot of efforts that have to be given in order to secure that the people have adequate access to sanitation. Now, if we not only focused on the amount of water that the people need that they don't have, but if we focus on the amount of wastewater and some other inadequate sanitation facilities that they use, we can also see that approximately 10% of those emissions of wastewater that is not treated or inadequate sanitation facilities contribute to about 10% of the anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. This means that sanitation, since it's not being attended, is also causing or is also affecting climate change, because methane or nitrous oxides, that is another greenhouse gases, can be, in this case, produced because of the discharge of this wastewater into surface water bodies. And in those surface water bodies, bacteria continue to degrade all those components present in the wastewater on the fecal sludge in an uncontrolled manner, causing that all these gases produced from their same microbial activities are emitted into the atmosphere, and then they contribute to the climate change. And if we focus on climate change, this is also causing the occurrence of extreme events that are becoming in time much more pronounced. These extreme events cause that, on the one hand, there may be hurricanes, or there may be some other extreme precipitation events occurring more frequent and of a higher magnitude. And at the same time, because the water is moving from one side to another, there are many other regions that are experiencing longer droughts. So climate change is affecting the occurrence of these extreme events, and therefore imposing another factor that needs to be attended in the communities. So we're looking at one hand all the industrial activities, and we are looking at the other on the effects of water, either water scarcity or the excess of water, plus the water quality that is required to perform the daily activities. And we see two different scenarios. So there is a strong need to find and reach an environmentally sustainable and economical beneficial use of water between the industrial sector and the communities, because everything is interlinked. And to find this balance can create a better scenario that can boost a sustainable development. Why this happens? Well, it happens because in the end, everything is interlinked. So in an X catchment, like for example, in this drawing, we have different types of activities. We have the cities where maybe different factories are located, but at the same time, there are some primary activities related to farming, relating to agriculture, some secondary activities as well. There may be some mining regions, and there are also some natural areas. And everything is interconnected. The water that is taken, that is, in this case, used for industrial activities, is the same water to some extent some of the towns are looking for, that they want to have access to. And once the activities take place, like for example, here we may take water for the industries, or may take water for irrigation in the agricultural fields, the water at the same time in this water cycle will be necessary downstream by some other stakeholders. And it's not, these are not only the stakeholders, but also some natural areas, natural reserves, where the flora and fauna, local, different types of local species tend to breed. And overall, this is a complete ecosystem, where if the quantity that is used or the quality is affected, then this cycle is going to be also influenced. And that's where we start to have certain imbalance in terms of the access to water quality and water quantity. And we have to take into consideration from this perspective that both the industries, but also the communities, the public in general, required the water, require water to have a certain quality, but also to have the required volumes. So this interconnection is why we need to try to find these balances. And if we don't only focus on the water availability, but also we think of how the economy, or in this case, the flow of goods and capital takes place in the communities, we may see another different type of interlinkage among all the different stakeholders, because we have the producers that are providing the raw materials and outputs to the processors, where we have some finished goods. We have the retailers that they are selling the goods to the consumers, but then the consumers are the ones that purchase the goods and services. The consumers are the ones that are also paying the taxes, but also asking for loans and credits, as well as the retailers, the processors, or the producers, asking for loans to the banks in order to keep, in this case, their services, their economic activities flowing. So this intersection with the different sectors makes or gives another layer to only the water. If by any chance, because of certain water availability in terms of quantity of quality is affected, for example, if the producers don't have enough water or the processors don't have enough water, then the retailers may not have the required products to sell, and the consumers will also have a limitation to have access to those products and will stop paying or asking for loans for the purchase of those products, affecting also economically the system. And because the processors, the retailers cannot produce, they also start to create certain limitations to the producers, because the producers will not have to whom to sell their products. So in the economic, let's say, scenario that we have also nowadays, the potential lack of water also affects this economic flow of goods and capitals. Not to say that also if, for example, the public health of the consumers, by any reason, for example, due to water of not the required quality, if by any chance the public health of the consumers is also affected, a lot of consumers are also the people that are working in the processing industries, the people that are working the retailers, or maybe also working with the producers. So to have consumers that are always healthy has another added value, because then the productivity also tends to increase, or at least is secured. So we have two different layers. We have one layer that is related to the water quality and quantity, and then we have also the second layer that is also related to these economic aspects. And as mentioned before, if by any chance there is something, in this case, limiting the activities of one of the stakeholders presented in the previous chart, then the activities of them are going to be jeopardized, creating certain types of risks. For the industries in particular, we may have operational risk when there are aspects related to have too much or too little water. If there is too much water, they may suffer of flooding, and the flood may damage the equipment. If there is not sufficient water, then the production may not take place, or if the quality is not required, doesn't have the required quality. In terms of risk, this may also have a reputational risk, because the consumer or the community or the investor or the government may have a different types of perception related to how those products are produced, or maybe if the production stops, that may also create a certain different perspective for the consumer. If the water that is generated is not adequately treated, that may also imply certain number of emissions that may lead to certain contamination or pollution that will degrade the ecosystem, creating an environmental risk, and that will trigger, in this case, a regulatory risk in case that the pollution, the contamination is not prevented. And all these aspects have also certain financial risk, because if by any chance the production stops due to a lack of water, or because there are some environmental aspects, or because the public in general are not pursuing, are not purchasing, buying the goods of the producer, then there is also financial risk, and that puts, let's say, in danger the continuity of the business. So there are different types of risks associated when these chains are affected. Yet there are a lot of opportunities. So in these different types of interlinkage, in these different types of interconnections, there are also some opportunities that have been estimated for the different industries. For example, it is recognized that companies may have a very strong impact in terms of financial aspects to their business due to water risks, estimating around $301 billion US dollars. This was quantified in the year 2020. But at the same time, it was estimated that if the companies start to work on actions that can prevent that these risks take place, they may need to invest about 5 times less. So around 55 billion euros are required to invest, that is 5 times less than the potential losses that they may face if those actions are not implemented. On the other hand, in terms of the water and sanitation conditions, it is estimated that per every dollar that is invested in water and sanitation, it generates in economic returns up to 4.30 US dollars. So that's a very strong return of investment. You invest $1 and you get $4.30 as a return. And not always in a direct manner, but also in terms of intrinsic benefits, because the people are going to be healthier, because the people are going to be more productive, because we can help in prevent the spread of different diseases, increasing not only the well-being of the population, but also creating a much more, let's say, healthy environment, also mentally, also socially, because of all these benefits. However, nowadays we are still losing around 260 billion globally every year due to inadequate wash services. So we are still having a lot of losses, but if there is $1 invested, there could be a return of almost 4.3 times that investment that we have. If, for example, being a bit more, let's say, precise on this chain, now trying to combine a bit of what can happen if there is a problem with water, but also if there is a problem with the economic sector. If, for example, there is a pollution in the farms or in the industry, and if this is discharged directly into a river, the contamination in the river will not only affect the ecological conditions, the ecosystems of the rivers, but since everything is interlinked, that may also influence the amount of water that is available, for example, for the fruit industry, because it may fail to meet global standards. If the fruits that the same farmers are producing are not complying with the required quality, then the exportation market will be affected, creating, in some cases, losses of up to 1.2 million US dollars per year. And that also has an additional risk, that is the potential, in this case, the potential loss of jobs, because a lot of people are depending on this chain. And we are not talking about only related to the people working in the farms or industry, but these chains, supply chains, as we see it, touches different sectors. It will be the health sector, the export sector, the shipping, transport, the local government, of course, the farming, conservation, tourism, warehousing, etc. So the risk can be really, really high if we don't act. In terms of the losses, these are two examples of a few years ago. This is from India. The one is from Pakistan. And in India, the IT, so not only the common, but also the new generation of industries, the IT sector, reported several losses because they couldn't use, or they couldn't have enough drinking water supply. So they had to shut down some of their installations because of the problems related to drinking water. And this problem with the drinking water was not because of a lack of water, but it was because of a severe rain, because of the flooding. So the water was contaminated, and because of that they couldn't operate. Or in the case of Pakistan, where the economic losses reached up to 12.5 billion US dollars due to the floodings that this country experienced. But there are a lot of opportunities. So these are the risks, but with any risk, there is a potential opportunity to act. And the opportunities can be related to opportunities in the operations, in the supply chain, or even in brand and innovation. So if we act, if we can start to implement new practices, if different actions are taken to secure that the water is in the whole catchment, in the whole area of influence, or the full supply chain is improved, there could be very good opportunities. For example, in terms of operations, it can directly link or be linked to savings in the costs. If the certain actions are implemented to, for example, recover water, to have rainwater harvesting, to reuse water, that may imply directly a savings in terms of costs. If we can ensure that the water has the required quality continuously, that will improve or maintain the productivity. But minimizing also the disposal of waste, that means, for example, improving how many products, raw materials are used, and to make a better use of these raw materials, so we minimize the amount of waste. That will also help in saving raw materials for the production, increasing also the long-term supply. By minimizing waste disposal, by minimizing water consumption, we can also have improved water quality, and in general, implementing all these different aspects in a controlled, structured manner within the industries can also improve the internal governance. By having all these aspects implemented, we can also minimize in the supply chain, we can minimize the disruption. So we can ensure that all these products can be produced in a more efficient manner. We can increase the efficiency, also help in meeting different corporate commitments. And we're not only working alone. There are different sectors. For example, there are knowledge institutes, universities, research centers, also communities of practice among the different producers, where there could be certain expertise exchange, so the knowledge can be, in this case, shared from different regions with best available practices. So this may also help in strengthening the production. And by having these benefits in terms of operations in supply chain, Also, the perception that the public in general have about certain brand can be improved. That will help in rebranding, that will help in innovation, that will increase the recognition, will increase also the reputational protection, among also other different factors that within the economic sector or in this supply chain and the flow of goods is also of major importance. So by implementing all these benefits for both the industries, but also thinking of the different stakeholders, thinking about the people in general. So working together, checking what is the water available in the sectors, ensuring that water available is sufficient and well distributed for the different stakeholders. So not only for the industry, also for the different communities in the required quality. There could be several different types of benefits for both the private and the public sector. And the outcomes in the end are or can be shared outcomes that can help in sustainability, in having a better collective vision, and also increases the capacity of the full sector. Last but not least, we also have the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations. Most of the talk or these aspects are related to the SDG number 6, that is related to clean water and sanitation, or to responsible consumption and production when we are thinking about the industrial sector. But there are many also aspects that influence other SDGs, like the SDG 3 for good health and well-being. That's where we are benefiting the local communities. Also SDG 11, because we can have sustainable cities and communities by creating better environments. At the same time, by acting, helping in these different water and sanitation sectors, we also prevent or decrease the influence of these emissions into the environment, contributing to the SDG 13 on climate action. We protect the surface or the water bodies in general by reducing the emissions of nutrients, of pollutants into the environment, protecting the aquatic ecosystems, and also the life on land. If we ensure that the water is equally distributed, if we think of what can be improved by containing potential flooding events, by ensuring that there is enough water in natural areas, creating more sustainable cities and communities, there is also an improvement in the life on land, not only for the human beings, but also for the different flora and fauna living in the regions. At IHE, well, we are different experts working on the water sector, and IHE is located, as mentioned before, here in Delft. But we are acting all around the world, either via our alumni community or through different projects in different regions. And our main purpose is to help and contribute to improve in the different regions the water sanitation conditions, but also attending that all the stakeholders have, as mentioned before, a beneficial use and accessibility to water in the required volumes and in required quality. Now, we are not only working as in a one-way, let's say, in a one-way direction, but we're also helping in exchanging the knowledge, helping in certain practices that are, let's say, adequate, that have been successful in South America or in Asia, that is also shared. So IHE is mostly a hub where we act as a bridge to transfer the knowledge and apply it where it is mostly needed, to try to find this balance, a balance where both the public sector, the private sector, and the different stakeholders can develop a as required for not only for us, but also for the planet. Thank you very much.